Om Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarva Jashadike Sharnya Triambike Gauri Narayani Namostute Sarva Swarupe Sarveshe Sarva Shakti Samunvide Vajastra Hino Devi Durge Devi Namostute Jaya Narayani Namostute Jaya Narayani Namostute Jaya Narayani Namostute Om Vedanta Siddhanta Nirukti Aresha Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagadcha Akanda Rupa Stiti Reva Moksho Brahmadvitiye Shrutayaha Pramanam Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. It is the apt and final conclusion of Vedanta that all is Brahman. Time, space, living beings, and the world. Living in constant recognition of this fact is what is called enlightenment. Brahman is pure and perfect, and one without a second. And the revealed scriptures are the sure and certain proof of this fact. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Satyena, Om Satyena Labhyastapassa Hyesa Atma Samyagyanena Brahmacharyena Nityam Antaha Sharirehi Jyotirmayo Hi Shubhraha Yam Pashanti Atayaha Kshina Doshaha Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The Atman, the indivisible self within all beings and all things, is realized by moderation, by knowledge, by austerity, and by veracity, all of these constantly cultivated. When mental impurities dissolve due to this practice, then the seer beholds it everywhere, existing in everything, even here in this very body. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Welcome again here as we meet for our second class at the Portland SRV Associations in our ashram here. At the conclusion of Navaratri, the 9 days and 9 nights of celebration of Divine Mother are concluded and have gone off successfully. Millions of people around the world have tuned into her in a more intense fashion and seen her as the pole star of their existence and as the mother of the Dharma, which we are discussing here in chunks of time, whenever we can separate them out from our busy life in the world and meet and just settle the mind on the Dharma. Once we can sharpen the mind like an arrow on thoughts on reality alone, and then penetrate the mark, which is the imperishable Brahman, the nameless, formless, timeless, deathless. We get to that through name, form, time, and space, as it were. But we relegate it all to the Divine Mother, Durga, as we call her, just worshipped so thoroughly over Navaratri. And now she disappears behind the scenes, and we, like the hounds of heaven, are seeking her all the time, trying to find her in every little thing that we do and everything we think, and of course in our deepest meditations and our daily contemplations. Then that becomes our eternal support. She is like the unseen seer, or the unstruck sound, or the inactive agent, the uninvolved participant. There are many epithets of a sort of enigmatic style that apply to her. So here on our second day of class, we are also looking into Divine Mother teachings, as has been advertised in our SRV schedule. The present scripture under study in Portland is the Taittiriya Upanishad. And I hope all of you are continuing to look at that. Actually, the weekend after next, we will have 2 classes on it here. So we'll remain in touch with the teachings in that great Upanishad. And next weekend, there will not be any live streaming, to remind all of our live streaming viewers, because of our retreat on the Columbia River Gorge called Prana and the Illusion of Death, which is going to be a very profound subject for all of us, young and old, who think deeper thoughts about past, present, and future. That is, there are those beautiful statements in the Upanishads like Adi Sam Yoga Nimitta Hetu Parastrikala Dakalopi Drishtaha Tam Vishvarupam Bhava Bhuta Midyam Devam Svatyatastam Upashya Purvam, out of the Svetashvatara Upanishad that we've studied recently. Beautiful way of thinking about our life and ourself. It really means meditate on the Lord as thine own self, seated in your heart, who appears to you as the universe, and who is the ultimate source of all living beings and all things. Perceive that one as the primal cause of the relationship between consciousness and matter, and as the partless divine entity who transcends the 3 phases of time, past, present, and future. That's the kind of message you get out of the Upanishads, see. That's why the Vedanta is so relevant in this day and age. It makes us think about powerful things, and in just 4 lines can confer upon us and transmit to us the essence of life in a nutshell. Any 4 lines you pick, it's all pure non-duality. And when it's not, it's pointing directly towards non-duality in a qualified way. And the Upanishads are full of those. And as I was saying yesterday, the Upanishads can be read, several of them can be read inside of 10 minutes to a half hour. You could completely take a whole Upanishad in. There are a few that are, of course, several months studies, but as far as the study itself, it all points to that divine self that you see existing in your own heart and reflected in your own mind. But that mind has to be one-pointed, has to be quiet, has to be silent, has to be relaxed, has to be focused on pure mind, as we saw in the teaching of the 4 boons yesterday: human birth, holy company, desire for liberation, and a pure mind. You have to purify the mind. You don't have to purify the self. That's ever pure, see. But you have to purify that mind so they can see the ever pure self. Actually, when the mind becomes pure, it becomes the self. Just that the mind has deviated and gotten attracted, gotten bewitched and enchanted by diversity, by so many things, by distraction. Now you need to dissolve all of those back, see. Om mano nabuddhi shariram tanmatram indriyam nabhuta bhutani nabhuta panchakam aham kritas chapi virat swarupakam tam isham atmanam upuiti shashvatam. Means that one attains to the true self who dissolves mind, intellect, senses, elements, ego, all back into the Atman, which is the source of all of them. See? So dissolution of the mind then is very enjoined upon the aspirant, so that that mind can be pure and it can always know itself. Know thyself is a great dictum. So that's the message of the Upanishads, and it happens to be the message, whether it's buried or hidden or revealed in other religions too, and other teachers bring that out. It's just that Vedanta tends to major in that subject of spiritual life. And in quite other paths, other religions, you see it's there as an underlying element, like a sutra, dhara, a holder of a thread that's running through all the religions. But Vedanta likes to seize upon that. And Vedanta here really means all the Indian darshanas, Samkhya, Yoga, Tantra, which was never systematized. It was too vast, but nonetheless we have to count it in. And Vedanta itself, Buddhism, and all of these great systems which have lived for thousands of years and whose founders gifted us with such profound philosophies, if you will, but really paths of dharmic life, divine life, which is one of the four fruits. We had basically the first one was Dharma. So Milarepa, the Tibetan luminary, sings, "When I think about the Dharma, I can't help but share it with others." He gets so inspired by thinking about this wealth of Dharma, these many facets of the diamond of Dharma, that he can't help but share it with everyone. It's just his natural penchant to do so. And that's, he gets bliss and joy out of that, and satisfaction, contentment. His mind's always in it. So where's trouble, and where's misery, and where's suffering, and where's brooding, and where's ignorance, when your mind's always in the Dharma? It's sort of like having a mantra and always repeating it. The mantra's purpose is, it's a universal practice. It's there in most of the religions too, whether you call it a rosary or a mala, but you keep your mind focused on that one mantra, and it doesn't allow any other waves to arise. So people often just take the mantra into their day and keep it going in the background. And many of my students write me and tell me that, even at work or on the bus, I'm keeping that mantra you gave me going in the background. I said, that's very good. It's a good way to protect yourself. But also do it in formal practice and sitting when you're naturally quiet and peaceful, because then the mantra will show you deeper secrets. Tripura Sundari is a name for mother. She's Sundari, beautiful, and she has three aspects. If you explain that in terms of the mantra, then there are four parts to the mantra. One is given to you at the time of initiation. Your guru gives you the seed bijam and the mantra, and you receive that as a transmission, and you use that. That's the first part of the four parts of Tripura Sundari. The other three you get by practicing, repeating and practicing, and the fourth part you get hidden in the heart. The fourth part of the mantra is hidden so deep in your heart that you have to go deep to find it. And that's her essence, basically. The mantra will connect you with her because it's mother mantra. And that will have its salutary effects on human life and mind naturally as a result over time. And don't worry about the fact that some of your karmas are coming up when you get a mantra. That's a good thing. See? So, saw Kala Rinpoche, a great Tibetan master, tell a bunch of teenagers he'd just given Buddhist initiation to. He said, well, go home to New York and high school and all that, and if you find that your life goes on well, just keep doing the mantra. But he says, you find a lot of troubles coming up, then that's even better, because the mantra is doing its work. It's bringing up all these karmas like bubbles rising. See, there's that beautiful mantra out of the Ashtavakra Samhita, or maybe it's in the Avadhuta Gita, which says, Pramadina na sandeyaha kim karishyami vrittiman utpadyante vilyante buddhascha yata jale. Jale is water. So it means ignorance is unreal. So how can it cause any doubt? The first line is profound. You see, even if ignorance is unreal, then why is it causing you any doubt? It's not causing you any real doubt. It's causing you Maya doubt. So then, it continues on, what should the yogi do when endowed with this mind and all its projections? He should allow them to rise, but then dissolve them all like bubbles into water. So everything you see come up from the mind's projections, you allow them to rise, because they will, because you have a mind and because it has its projections and so forth. but hands off. You see, you just then let them arise, and then you, in your every day in your meditation, you make sure you dissolve them all back. And that's the way to live in a karmaless state, in a vrittiless state, in a samskaraless state. Some skaras are deeper than other skaras. See, and those samskaras run deepest. They mean many, many lifetimes for us, which is still a relative truth that the West hasn't come to face off with yet, reincarnation. It's still some sort of a joke to them, maybe, or some sort of impossibility, but everything is explained by your past lifetimes. Everything that your features come from your past life, your family comes from your past life, the way you are, the way you act, the way you think, everything comes from your past existences. And when you leave off with so much relationship with the world and start concentrating just upon your mind, aham kritas japi and na mano na buddhi, then you start dissolving all the things that are in it, and then you can see yourself again. People can do that even by taking a few weeks off and going into the woods and staying in a cabin, as long as they remain upright. See? Don't fall, and they'll be fine. And even if they fall, it's been a teaching. So go into retreat any way you can, or take every opportunity to take that silent pilgrimage, not only in your daily meditation, but in your outer life too. And then you'll know the meaning of Om Drishyam Pratitam Pravilapayan San Matram Anandaganam Vibhavayam. Means consciousness is one indivisible mass of pure conscious awareness. So what is this external and internal business, you see? I should take the external and the internal and dissolve them into one indivisible state. Then I should meditate on that state, and then I can pass my time contentedly and be free. See? Meditate on that indivisible state and pass your time contentedly and be free. So internal and external are for your discriminatory process. That's separating the wheat from the chaff. If you remain only in the external, well, we all know the effects of that problem. We can see it in the world and in the worldly. But people who start living an inner life, an interior life, we see the problems that come up. And spiritual practices will seem to exacerbate those. They'll seem to increase them. That's because you're living in a state where you're, let's borrow a modern term, you're in denial of everything that's inside of you, see, especially the negative things. You're seeking pleasure and you're shunning pain. That's how yoga, father of yoga, put it early on. You're seeking pleasure and you're shunning pain, but pain, Krishna says in the Gita, is what helps you grow, and pleasure binds you. So you don't want pain in the end, you don't want growth in the end. Actually, the Atman doesn't grow. See, only the mind seems to grow, and it expands in its knowledge to know Brahman. But Brahman stays the same, Atman stays the same, Purusha stays the same, the self stays the same. So when you're going through this illusion of growth or this illusion of transformation, then you have to have that stable foundation underneath you, upon which all these bubbles will rise, like projections, and then your part is just to dissolve them back in every day. A mantra and study of scriptures and worship and the puja. It's just dissolving everything back into that one indivisible state of pure conscious awareness. Timeless, deathless, nameless, formless, timeless, and thankfully egoless. That is thine own self. Meditate on thine own self, on the Lord as thine own self, seated in your heart. So all of these are just teachings from the Divine Mother of the Universe. And if you were to meet her, she would start talking about those right away to you. That's your own mind talking to you when you finally get it in a dharmic state. And then the Dharma is coming upon you all the time. And that's Mother's voice. She's that subtle. swifter than the swiftest intelligence. He's there immediately all the time, you see. That's why we sing such beautiful songs to her, like Jaya Jagadambe Site Radhe Gauri Durge Namo Namo Jaya Jagadambe Site Radhe Gauri Durge Jaya Jagadambe Site Radhe Gauri Durge Namo Namo Jaya Jagadambe Site Radhe Gauri Durge Namo Namo Jaya Jagadambe Site Radhe. It goes on like a mantra, you see, in rounds with her precious names in it, like Site, Radhe, Jagadambe, many of the epithets that were in the puja last night when we enacted it for 3 hours. So that's Divine Mother, swift, immediate, there in everything, so adept at remaining behind the scenes that it's hard to see. But over time, you develop the ability to say, oh, that was Mother. See? Even that's a few seconds behind the fact, you see. Mm-hmm. Some amazing thing happens. Oh, that was Mother, but she's already gone, like 30 seconds ago. She was there on the scene, and pretty soon all your thoughts are Mother, and your acts are Mother. And that's how Ramakrishna ended up. You see, I've given everything to Mother of the Universe, and there's nothing left of me. 100%, 120%, he used to say, given to the Divine Mother of the Universe. But in the meantime, until we can get to such a station that the Paramahamsa lives in all the time, then we look at various teachings of Mother. Here's two that use her epithet, her image of the 10-armed Durga. And we looked at this one in San Francisco last week. And this live streaming audience saw that, and we went through it. But it's just worth a review for Portland here. Is that yoga has 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. You know, I talked about them yesterday, that people were sitting in this posture before they had mastered nonviolence, and before they had mastered truthfulness, and before they had mastered scriptures, swadhyaya, and before they had mastered tapas, austerity. And then you're inviting Mother up the Kundalini to come up the spine, up the subtle centers, because you're sitting in this spread position. And then she comes up and intensifies things, and you're not prepared for her. And so a lot of people sort of run afoul of the Kundalini yoga system because of that, and have odd experiences that didn't need to be there. There are even books written about that painful experience of Kundalini, but Ramakrishna never considered it painful. He's, all blissful. Mother was rising all the time and opening him up to various experiences. So, in Mother tradition, that is in the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, which is her great scripture. Great means huge, too. You won't read that in 30 minutes. In fact, at the end, they say, if you can read this once in a lifetime, it confers so many blessings. If you can read it twice in a lifetime, more blessings. And he has this big list about, but try and read it at least once all the way through from cover to cover, like I did. And you will be informed about some of the amazing facets of Divine Mother Dharma. And in there, in the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, you see she's added 5 more yamas and 5 more niyamas to the usual list. That's 10 of each. And you see there, ahimsa is the first, just like in 8-limbed yoga. Satyam's the second, just like in 8-limbed yoga. Asteum's the third, just like in the eight-limbed yoga, that is, nonviolence, truthfulness, and non-covetousness or non-stealing are all there. And then brahmacharya is there, just like in the eight-limbed yoga, that is sense control. And then some of the others start showing up. Daya, she adds in, is new, compassion for suffering beings. We were singing about that last night. Daya, Rupena Samstita, Namastasyaya, 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 Namo Namami. May Divine Mother exist in us as compassion for the sufferings of all living beings. Samatva is there, steadiness of mind, equanimity of mind, peace of mind, balance of mind, sattvic mind, however you want to say it. Upeksha, the Buddhists like to use that, is equanimity of mind, equipoise of mind, peace of mind. You need peace of mind first and foremost, Sri Sarada Devi has told us. So samatva is a very high place to occupy. It's hard to get that mind under control from being restless and from being lazy. Those are the two lower gunas. But sattva guna is a higher guna, and that's where from there you can proceed to developing a taste for study of scriptures, say, whereas before you were sort of averse to it, too many words, too many ideas. All of a sudden you find yourself in a balanced mind, and you're sitting and just devouring it. So you're just taking it in, and it's registering, and it's having its salutary effect. Driti is firmness, and akartritvama is moderation. We just chanted that. Satyena labhyastapasa hyesa atma samyagyanena brahmacharyena nityam. You want to have that moderation in everything. Moderate appetites the yogis seek in all ways. Sensual appetites modified and lessened. Kshama is forgiveness. There's a teaching for today many people are getting into. Somebody asked me just in San Francisco last week, said, well, how should one deliver an apology? He said, well, read the last chapter of the Gita, chapter 18. Sri Krishna goes through all of those ways of acting, best ways of acting and thinking, in according to the three gunas and people's temperament. But what I had to say about it was, the person had asked, how do you deliver an apology, and should you really make it heartfelt? And I said, well, not necessarily. Sometimes heartfelt apology can stir up the ashes, just make it off the cuff. Say, oh, by the way, that incident that we had yesterday, forgive me, and just let it go. It's nothing, and walk away. And that's forgiveness. And the person might think, oh, that's not very heartfelt, you see. But it's nothing, you see. They start thinking, well, they let it go so easily. Maybe I should let it go so easily. Because these things tend to exacerbate, and say, oh, that wasn't a heartfelt enough apology, you see. If you give a heartfelt apology, or it begins to... So the idea is that this evenness, this forgiveness should just be natural to us. Should be a matter of little moment. I like that English phrase. It's a matter of little moment. See, because time doesn't exist, it's a matter of no moment, really. So you just go on with your life as usual. So these are yamas. These are like mainstays of spiritual practice. They should just be in you, and they are in you. But if they get covered over and you become unforgiving and unrelenting and so forth, then of course life's flow will be impeded. We chanted this morning at the mantle after our meditation, Om Apyayantu Mamanvani Vak Pranaschakshu Shrotamatra Balamindriyani Chasarvani. It's one of the great peace chants, 7 peace chants. Right in those 2 lines, or that 1 line, there's all that you need to know. The body needs to be healthy, the life force needs to flow unimpeded, and the mind needs to expand in its capacity to know Brahman, and the senses need to be moderate. So it's like these ancient rishis really did give this some thought in their deepest contemplations, and then put together these slokas and sutras that were most efficient and most able to penetrate through all of that surface mind thinking that goes on. They didn't write it down for ages. They just delivered it as verbal transmission to their children. And finally, at a time when a lot of the teachings were going to get lost, then they began to write them down, you see. And then Vedavyas came along and in the Vedantic age and collected them. The story is that that's why Ganesha has one tusk, you see. The elephant-headed god only has one tusk. Have you seen that in his images? Because he and Vedavyas got together, and Ganesha was going to be the scribe. And Vedavyas had this amazing mind. Talk about Swadhyaya and Smriti. He could remember everything. All the Dharma was in him. Sort of like Yudhishthira, Arjuna's older brother. All the Dharma was in him. And he just started listing it out. And they were going to write it down finally. So Ganesha got the tablet, found that, but didn't have a pen. Had an inkwell, but no pen. So, oh, don't worry. I'll break off my tusk and use that. Dips it in the ink and starts writing, you see. And the scriptures got written down. So, that's all Dharma, you see, and it's eternal Dharma, Sanatana Dharma. You've heard the term? Sanatana. Sanatana means eternal. And what the Indians mean by that, although it has been a little bit misused in some cases in India, Sanatana Dharma just really means the Dharma of the ancient rishis, which I think includes not only the Aryan incursion, but pre-Aryan conversion, where the Tantrasists were living along the Indus River and collecting wisdom from their worship of Shiva and Shakti, sort of like we were doing in the puja last night with Mother. Divine Mother really is both Vedic and Tantric. She has to appear everywhere, but goddesses like Durga and Kali are more Tantric oriented, and goddesses like Saraswati and Lakshmi are more Vedic. So, in fact, Saraswati is mentioned in the earliest of the Vedas. She's called Umavati or Himavati, means mother of the snow mountains, the Himalayas, Himavat. And she appears to help the understanding of the gods when they saw Brahman and they couldn't understand what it was, and then it disappeared from their vision, and she was in the place, you see, and said, "Oh, who are you?" "Oh, I'm Himavati. What you just saw was the formless Brahman." And the gods thought they were the greatest, you see. They didn't know about the formless Brahman yet. So many beautiful stories are there that signify and explain the Dharma. I was talking to a family right here in this spot a couple days ago, and I was telling the parents of these two little children, who were like 1 year and 4 years or something years old, and I was telling them, you don't need to read Aesop's fables to them. You don't need to tell them fairy stories or children's stories, these silly books that are coming out with talking frogs and all that. Forget all that. Swamiji was raised on the Mahabharata stories from the time he was very young. The children of India, their mothers and fathers read them these great epic stories, which are very entertaining, by the way, but which have more than a moral message. They show you simultaneously at once the truths of the Dharma and the Maya that's going on. They don't pull any punches and try and cover the truth or hide it behind some sort of surface, happiness, I'm all right, you're all right mantra, you see. But they tell it how it is, but then they show people getting over it, you see. My teacher's favorite English mantra, get over it. Oh, I'm not feeling very well lately. Get over it, you say. Just wasn't having it, you see. You're a yogi, you're a yogini, what are you doing? Letting the mind descend into that, you see. You keep the mind healthy, the body will stay healthy. You keep your attitude healthy, you keep yourself sharp, you can live forever. Essentially, you live forever anyway, of course, but that's an Advaitic teaching. But I mean physically, you're not going to die till you want to die. I mean, I've talked to the people who deal with the dying and been there myself on several occasions, and I see that people are just giving up in the mind, and then the body follows. And if they have even a life-threatening disease and they don't want to die, they'll get over it. I've seen it happen. So the mind is everything, my child. That's what Sri Sarada Devi told us. The mind is everything, my child. So you must keep it in fit shape in this stage of the game, when consciousness is inhabiting it, you see. You are consciousness, and it's inhabiting the mind-body mechanism, the psychophysical being, Vedanta calls it. And so be consciousness. It's not rocket science, you say. It's not that hard just to be yourself. But people have made an art of running away from themselves. You wake up, well, there's myself, I got to get out of here. See? See, what is that? See? So, face off with everything that's in the way of being yourself. Because you are yourself. A little bit then about firmness, moderation, and forgiveness. The final one there of the 10 yamas in mother tradition is Socha. That's also one of the yamas in eight-limbed yoga. Socha is purity. So that's, again, sort of like purity of mind. But there's a teaching of the 3 kinds of purities. You remember them? First, there's outer purity, Dravya Shuddhi, then there's inner purity, or purity of act, Kriya Shuddhi, and then there's Chit Shuddhi. So there's 3 levels of purity. For the first, you want to practice purity of location, purity of object, you see. So that's why you put a shrine up in your house, in a consecrated place, sprinkle Ganges water, light candles, wave incense, and don't do anything else but read scripture and meditate there. Keep it sacrosanct. If you have such a small place that you sleep and eat and worship in the same room, then you have to make a partition, you see. So you can just go in there and have that little space that's consecrated to outer purity. See, that's in line with what they call Gauna Bhakti. Gauna Bhakti means outer worship, and at the puja last night, you saw me Om Pita Shakti Bhyo Namaha, Pita Devata Bhyo Namaha. You saw me doing that in the puja. Well, that means that altar is in me. That has come out of me. So the altar is for your outer purification, to remind yourself of that daily and have a place to go, which is Dravya Shuddhi, pure vibration, because it's for sure that when you go out of your door, you're not going to encounter Dravya Shuddhi in many places. You see not a lot of purity at the workplace or on the street or on the bus or in your neighbor's house even, probably. So you've got to develop that in you. And then you'll get the idea of purity in act, you see, Kriya Shuddhi. Then your actions have to become pure. And that's just sensible dharmic living, really. But it's amazing how far people have gotten away from it, not necessarily out of evil propensities, but just forgetfulness and habitual life, you see. They're just going about everyday life and lending little doles of impurity to everything. You see, laziness, insensitivity, non-awareness. You'd call it non-mindfulness. The Buddhists like the word mindfulness in it. So you become lackadaisical in your acts. And, anything from leaving crumbs on the table in the kitchen to spilling wax on an altar, you see. You have to make sure that you are very careful about your acts and then follow up after yourself in the event that Maya impedes, and it will. So the 3 kinds of purity are a good teaching there. 10 niyamas, let's look at those briefly. I'm going through these quick because you saw them if you watched live streaming in San Francisco last week. But they're a good mother teaching, and it's interesting to place them against the 5 yamas and 5 niyamas of yoga to see what she's adding to the system of yoga. Tapasya, one of the niyamas of yoga. Austerity. If you have a problem, austerity is the best way to deal with it. Not conventional means. You'll go to various conventional means and you'll find out that the problem might be chased away back into hiding. But tapas is the way to get rid of the problem for all time. You intensify, and you intensify in the right way, and you'll find that problem gone, utterly gone. That's what Ram Prasad sings in his song. He says, "One day I woke up and my delusion was gone, utterly gone. Who can hide the truth? Who can hide a blazing fire in a cotton cloth? See? Not possible. Poof, the thing's going to go off, you see. So the truth is gained by austerity. Do I have to repeat it? Om labhyastapasa hyesa atma samyagnena brahmacharyena nityam. See? So tapas is there. See? Tapasya, see, is in that first line of that sloka. So the Atman is realized by tapas. So you have to have that kind of intensity. You can make your whole life tapas. I mean, there's extreme cases of like that. Yogis in caves and sannyasins wandering without any possessions. And so that's like completely tapas, you see. I mean, my whole life is now going to become a tapas. If I make my whole life a tapas, then how can God remain veiled from me anymore? Who can keep a fire tied in a cotton cloth, you see? So that's their way, their modus operandi. That's the way they live. It's the way they ask you to live. See? They challenge you, show you the way and challenge you to live up, again, to your own self-integrity, if you want to put it that way. So tapas is there. The rest of these, bar none, are all new additions to the yama field, if you're looking at it in terms of the yamas of yoga. Dhanam, charity. Generosity, selflessness. It extends itself into not just money matters and financial affairs, but into giving time and giving your compassion. It would be very much connected to the yama of compassion, so that you are not pasu, but virya. See, Krishna says in the Gita, virya means heroic. Pasu means animalistic. So an animalistic life is just thinking of yourself, selfishness, you see. And then the Tantra says one graduates from the animalistic pasu style of life, and then there's a kind of category called virya, means heroic, like Arjuna. And see, they're looking for the highest good of all people around them. They're into loka samgraha, the good of all the worlds. And all the worlds doesn't mean out here. They're also concerned about the ancestor worlds, and they're concerned about the worlds of the celestials and so forth. So, be charitable is one of the niyamas, she says. Good practice. Then tushti, contentment. We talked about that yesterday as dhamma, sama and dhamma. That is inner peace and self-control. So this inner peace is sama, and dhamma is the self-control that is enjoined upon you to try and keep it. And it's also very much aligned with samatva, steadiness. So you see these yamas and niyamas work together. Across the chart is Shraddha, faith and Dharma. We had that yesterday as one of the 6 jewels and 6 treasures and 4 jewels, right? That is, if you get Shraddha, that will lead you to a desire for liberation. But everything that preceded Dharma, preceded Shraddha, was inner peace, self-control, forbearance, concentration. The six jewels, Shat-Sampatti it's called. So that's how you build up your faith. Here, the mother's saying faith in the Dharma because she knows that it can't just be a mere belief. That won't do it, but it has to be a rock-solid faith in something. And that something that doesn't betray you is Dharma. In a way, even Ishvara betrays everyone. See, because where is he? Where is she? Why aren't they coming? Why don't they come when I pray to them? See? But the real case is that we're betraying Ishvara. Ishvara is the central pole of light, around which everything revolves. And we're in the revolution without thinking about the central pole, you see. We're just along for the ride. Oh, what a merry-go-round, you see. So sometimes I eat cotton candy and have fun, and sometimes I puke my guts out the back of the circus tent, you see. That's life, you see. But nobody knows about the pole, that everything is revolving around. So we're actually betraying Ishvara all the time. But something that won't betray you ever, whether it's your fault or not, is Dharma. It's easy to find the Dharma, and it's easy to connect with it, and it's easy to study it, and it's easy to realize it. These are teachings that are beyond morality and ethics. Like commandment is, thou shalt not kill. But a dharmic commandment, or a dharmic law, would be, thou cannot kill. You're taught the difference between something that apparently dies and something that never dies. And that's you that never dies. Your body can be killed, but you've witnessed all your births and deaths, and here you still are, you see. No one was able to kill you. And you'll know that when you go inside and open up all the avenues of the mind and run the prana along them and find the Shakti in them and dedicate yourself to it and realize that that's all Dharma, that you are a teaching. The human being stands up with 5 fingers, right? 5 fingers, 5 toes, 5 toes. It's like you're reminding yourself that there's 5 elements, 5 senses, 5 subtle elements, and 5 subtle senses. 20 in all. You came into the body and said, well, I know Maya's thick, so I have to have some way of reminding myself, you see. So just look at your hands and feet, you see, and say, oh, there's 20 cosmic principles that brought me here to the body. See? So it's this kind of taking stock of what is around you, what's in you, that leads you to that kind of reminder, smriti, the kind of memory back inside of your head. And the human being stands up, and if the hands and feet aren't enough, then he starts looking inside and he finds thousands of nerves running, thousands of blood vessels running through the body. He's just a walking teaching, you see, of what? That inside of every one of those nerves is 100,000 other nerves that can't be seen, which are subtle, you see. Ara eva ratanabal samhatra yatra nadyaha sha eshon chotsterate vahuda jayamanaha om ityevam dayatha atmanam. Inside there at the heart in the center where all the subtle nerve endings meet, like the spokes of a chariot wheel at the hub, rests the Atman. See? Inside of every one of those physical nerves, which there are hundreds of, there's 100,000 subtle nerves. So you're walking around with holding all this, and sort of like the musk deer runs around the forest looking for that wonderful scent on the winds, but it's in its own navel, you see. Musk comes out of the deer's navel. So it doesn't know that it's carrying the scent, you see. So we're carrying all these teachings for ourselves. We're the walking Dharma. And when you see a Ramakrishna or a Vivekananda or a Holy Mother, they've of course fully realized that. They're not just masters, they're past masters. And so better for you when they can incarnate in any age and just tell you, don't you know that you're your own teaching? Don't you know that you should make yourself the darling of your own worship? You see, the altar, I'm worshiping at it, right? And if the altar's in me, aren't I really worshiping me? Is there any shame in that? Yeah, if you're worshiping your ego. But if your ego's been effaced and you're concerned about the deities and the deities existing in you, then they're not going to let you get away with egotistic action, egotistic thought, egotistic doings. You'll be pure, you see. That's the point, is to purify with worship. So this is how Shraddha works, you see. Faith in the Dharma. In yourself, walking around as a teaching like that. The last ones here, Ashtaka, faith in the scripture. Ashtaka really means faith in non-duality. It's one of the tantric one of the 7 tantric qualifications for a tantric aspirant is ashtaka. It means you need to have fidelity to non-duality. You need to know that non-duality is at the foundation of everything. That don't get caught in the vision of the waves, but try and look into the ocean for once. Homa is sacrificial oblations into the fire. If we weren't afraid in the West of burning our neighbor's house down and the whole neighborhood with it, then we'd probably be doing more Homa ceremony in our homes. But my teacher used to go to the fireplace in his place here in Portland and do Homa ceremony on Durga Puja. And we'd all attend, and he'd sit there with his, doing the mantras and throwing things in the fire, you see, making oblations, ghee and leaves and flowers and various things. And you take some of that ash, put it on your forehead, you see. It's a very powerful way of giving away everything that you don't want. You see, the fire burns, purifies. The elements really are beautiful that way. They all purify if you're taking the best part of them, not just getting attached to sensual pleasures with them, but actually seeing that water purifies and air purifies by breathing, and fire purifies by burning away. Well, fire is one of the aligned more with austerity, you see. It's going to be something that puts you to a test. First, it's the fire of suffering, you see, and that's burning away some dross in your consciousness to reveal the gold of consciousness. Then from the fire of suffering, it's going to go to the fire of austerity, and then to the fire of spiritual practice, and to the fire of intelligence, see, and then to the fire of yoga. Swami Vivekananda used to say, I have the fire of yoga in me all the time, I don't need anything else. With the fire of yoga, I can burn everything away. So if you own that fire, it's like an inner homa. The outer homa you're doing there, but you should be sitting there watching your Swami or your priest throw things into the fire, not just, oh, isn't this interesting, or I wish it would get done, I can go home, you see. Everything he throws in the fire should be one thing you thought about that you'd like to get rid of. See? So you're participating in the Homa ceremony. You're throwing greed, you're throwing lust, you're throwing anger, you're throwing resentment, you're throwing lack of forgiveness and incidents that happen to you into the fire, every leaf he throws in. See? You're committing all to the fire of purification. And that's Homa. When I was in India with some of my students a few years ago, we attended an original Vedic Homa sacrifice right off the streets of Delhi into this little courtyard where these priests were officiating. And they said, we'll put together, actually Ramnand, one of our friends, organized it for us. We have these Westerners that have come. Can you show them the original Vedic Homa sacrifice? And so we went down this little alleyway and into this courtyard open to the sky. You see, some priests were living there, and they set up the fire and took it through it, made us participate in it, and told us what everything was about. Anyone here was with me on that time? You too? So that was, of course, a great boon. And you went right back to ancient times. You see, the city, even as old as Delhi is, just disappeared around you, and you're sitting, on some plot of earth in India somewhere, doing the sacrifice, and time stops. You see, and you're just the past is brought forward, and you're taken right into that eternal moment. So, yamas are these observances you need to keep in your life. And these niyamas are more like practices you can do. 4 more. Hri, modesty. That's why we sang last night even a beautiful thing. Om Lajapata Vritti, Lajapata Vritti Nicham Sharada Jnana Dayike Papebhyona Shara Raksha Kripa Mahi Namostute. So Lajapata Vritti Nicham Sharada Jnana Dayike. She's compassionate, she's full of wisdom, she's modest. Hri. See? And because she's modest, her compassion and her wisdom and her power is more impressive to you than if she was arrogant and, you see, putting on airs, pretentious, like many of these teachers are, you see. So that she's humble, but she's got all those qualities is, twice as impressive to you. She's just natural in her power, naturally retiring, you see. O Mother of Wisdom in modest veil, is how Swami Vivekananda defined that sloka. O Mother of Wisdom in modest veil. Now you see Ishvara Pujanam. It's really called Ishvara Pranidhana in yoga, isn't it? Remember the 5 niyamas of Patanjali's yoga. Ishvara Pranidhana is one of them. It means really worship of God. But Ishvara Pujanam is even more explicit, especially after our 3-hour puja last night we've just been through, in which our devotion got increased exponentially. And we have felt Mother's presence so intensely by that 3-hour worship. I told you all to remain completely focused on the puja for 2.5, 3 hours, and that you'd feel her presence. And I think everyone did. Felt an increase of her presence. And then, of course, 2 souls took initiation afterwards, and in that atmosphere. So it's going to impress them. Speaking about impressing things upon the mind, then that's going to go along with their samskaras. Samskaras aren't just negative, they're also positive samskaras. We end up talking about the negative ones because those are the ones that are impeding our growth. But remember, we said Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Gajananama Padmarkam Harshananama, and Enekadanta Upashmahe. There's this beautiful mantra that I recited last night to Ganesha. O Mother, one-tusked, who lights the face of the Divine Mother of the Universe, who is her son. You see, Ganesha's her son. Funny stories about Ganesha being born to the Divine Mother. And then remover of obstacles, Vikya Vinashane, he's called, the remover of obstacles. So remember, all your obstacles removed last night by Ganesha. Now you just have to take account of the fact and consider yourself as free as you truly are. So Ishvara Pujanam, worship of God. Siddhanta Vakya Shravana, nice long many-syllabled Sanskrit word, which many people fall back on, but I happen to love them. Siddhanta Vakya Shravana, you take it apart. Siddhanta means a conclusion. Vakya means word. And Shravana means this faith, you see. So, and to hear with faith, you see. Shruti, Shravana. So, you must hear those words that are the final conclusion, that are the Vedanta Dindima and the Tantra Dindima, those conclusions that the seers have come to over long periods of time of worship. Not just, say, 50, 60, 70 years in one lifetime, but based on many lifetimes, and coming back again and reaffirming those conclusions of the ancient seers. That's the beautiful thing about Indian darshanas, philosophies, is that they all concur with one another around the most important points. They may have a little bit of difference in the way they go about things, but the conclusions come out the same. Like, for instance, the soul's eternal and pure and ever pure, ever free, never bound, and so forth. And Brahman is untouchable and transcendent. And so certain things there's no argumentation about, like in Western philosophy. It's not the point to argue, it's the point to find out the similarities and then accent those and then give them to people, and then they can make their own conclusions, siddhanta, about them. And that's why we chanted today, actually, Vedanta Siddhanta Niruktiresha. I started out with that chant this morning before class. It is the final conclusion of the Vedanta that all this is Brahman. Time, space, living beings in the world. Well, the teaching you usually get is time, space, living beings in the world are all Maya. You see, and all of a sudden you're being thrown this totally opposite teaching. It's the final conclusion of the Vedanta that all is Brahman. Time, space, living beings in the world. So why this variance? See, it's going to confuse me. Explain that to me. Basically, because when that's the final conclusion of the Vedanta, and you haven't come upon it yet, you haven't put the teachings into practice and concluded that for yourself. Back there at the beginning of the spiritual path, which is hard to navigate and difficult to tread, so say the wise, you didn't see Maya. It was in you, you see. You had to do those certain practices to bring it out, like bringing out oil and sesame seed and so forth. And then when you saw it, you decided to divorce it, you see, renounce it, get rid of it. And then the very same thing that was a problem to you becomes Brahman. See? The very same thing that you renounced along the practice part of the path becomes Brahman in the realization part of the path. That's neti-neti in Vedanta, or the Buddhists call it shunyata, emptiness. You have to see it's empty first before you can see that it's Buddha nature. It's empty of what? Oh, suffering, happiness, ego, objects. But it's not empty of essence. See, that's the final conclusion. It's empty of everything but essence. And not knowing that in the beginning was causing you trouble, Maya. And so you couldn't make a declaration like that. You couldn't understand Vedanta, Siddhanta, or Siddhanta, Vakya, Shravana. But the scriptures are confirming it for you all the time. Study and confirmation of the scriptures, yet people have abandoned the scriptures. They think, oh, it's all words. Or they heard Sri Ramakrishna say, mere book learning, don't get caught in it. But he wasn't talking about the revealed scriptures. Those aren't books. Those are realizations of ancient seers, or just happened to write them down and can gift them to you now. We're not talking about who owned what tent peg and what, on what tent in ancient times belonged to some family who was. No, they're not concerned with these kinds of minutiae. Everything you hear in the revealed scripture is truth. Ignorance is unreal. Then how can it cause you any doubt? Does that sound like a tent peg in someone's family? See, this is direct truth. You just pick that up and read it. Or meditate on the Lord as thine own self seated in your heart. Is there anything unclear about that? What part of that statement didn't you understand? You see. Read my lips, or better yet, read their books. You see. They're not mere books, so people throw the baby out with the bathwater. And the scriptures are containing every little bit of essential information they need to know. Yes, maybe it is for the intellect, but the intellect is a major part of the mind that's going to pierce through the curtain of Maya. What else is going to pierce through the curtain of Maya but the intelligence? Because Mother is called intelligence. See? Buddha named himself intelligence. Bodhi means intelligence. So you have to refine that intelligence, make it sharpen it, and then pierce through with it. Mind, ego, and thoughts aren't going to do that. They're going to look at the intelligence and, you do it. See? We'll follow. Well, the last thing here is very apropos, isn't it? Because two souls last night got theirs. Their mother mantra, and they're going to do japa of it and practice again this repetition, both silent, uttered, and out loud. Those are three kinds of way you can do the mantra. You have a bad day and you just come home and say, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. You see? Or the day was a little better and you just go, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. But if the day was fine, you see, the cup stops gurgling when it's filled. You see, so you feel filled that day, and you don't have anything to say, and it's all inward life. It's all inward mantra. It's all Vakya, Shravana, Siddhanta Vakya Shravana. It's the conclusion is something that you've already made, and now you can just revel in it. See, this self is Brahman. I understood finally. Now I'm going to enjoy that realization. That's called ananda, by the way. It's not ordinary enjoyment or pleasure. It's unalloyed, uninterrupted bliss. And that's what we want. That's what we're all seeking here. Problem is, you can't find it here. Really, you can't find it either here nor there. It's beyond locations. And it's outside of time and space. So all of this might be Brahman, but this is the Brahman with attributes, see. That's why that's important there, you see. Ashtaka, faith in the scripture, means faith in the nondual scripture. Because you can have that realization that all is Brahman and all this is Brahman, and that's a very, according to Sri Ramakrishna, the last word in spiritual life is to see God in everything. But he's talking about the last word in spiritual life here in the body. Beyond the body, there is no last word. Beyond the body is just truth, you see. And that truth is yourself. So you develop fealty to that Dharma and to the scriptures and use the mantra and so forth to get beyond time-space causation, see, beyond Maya, and live in yourself. Well, that courses us through the 10 yamas and 10 niyamas. Let's look at the quotes I selected out of the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, which is Mother herself, Sri Devi, talking to us. She says, I am the world mother. Fix heart and mind upon this lustrous form of mine, and soon you will realize the union of Jiva and Brahman. Soon you will realize the union of Jiva and Brahman. Vedanta Siddhanta Niruktiresha. Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagad Cha. The Jivaham is Brahman. Jiva is Shiva. It's just that these coverings and veils have gotten in the way of that, and you just have to strip them apart, strip them away, you see, and gaze into your own original face. That's how Ram Prasad puts it in one of his songs. Gaze into your own original face. And that's what we talked about yesterday in terms of Atma Vichara. If you come into holy company, then you'll come armed with a question. Tell me that relationship between the apparently embodied soul and the Supreme Soul, the Jivatman and the Paramatman. Can you explain that to me? And the teacher says, yes, that's an apparent division. It's like capping off water in a jar from a lake, you see. It's the same water still. You just break the jar underwater with a hammer or a rock, and water is water. But some of that water got identified with a kosha, see, with a covering. You see all the koshas I was using last night in the puja? Kosha for this, kosha that. Oh, here's your bath, mother. Here, I got to wash your feet, you see. Covering after covering. Container, see. Well, it's like the puja is trying to tell you everything is a container. If you look at the picture of Ramakrishna, it's contained by the frame, you see. And the frame is contained by the altar, and the altar is contained by the room, and the room is contained by space. You see, so it's all inward, isn't it? So just like the kosha, water is poured in it, and you add some Ganges water to it, you're the kosha, and water of consciousness has been poured into you. Where's that drop of Ganges? You see, I can add, you see, the dharmic drop of water I can add into my own consciousness so that this vessel becomes pure and fit for holding consciousness. So that's going to show you eventually the union of Jiva and Brahman. Jiva is Shiva. My teacher used to say that from the podium all the time. Jiva is Shiva. The bottom quote is by Sri Devi again. The nice, very compact word for her. So these long, some of these beautiful long names she has, you see. Just Sri Devi. You know. She says, the enemies to yoga, union with the self, are the 6 passions of lust, anger, greed, ignorance, vanity, and jealousy. The practitioner overcomes them by the attainment of the 8 limbs of yoga, and does so by first practicing and accomplishing limbs 1 and 2, the 10 yamas and the 10 niyamas. I've been saying this forever. Again, that people sit in practice hatha, you see, hatha, and they haven't learned and practiced and hopefully mastered, at least to some degree, the yamas and niyamas. Well, if they want to follow the path of yoga, as she says here, which is Patanjali's 8-limbed path, that's one thing. You've got 5 of each. But she's proposing that you add on 5 more, tack on 5 more to your practice. So you have 10 of each, you see. 10 of each. See? Everything powerful comes in 5s. Everything revelatory comes in 5s. Quintuplication. Now let's look here, before the break, at the 10 divine articles of, speaking of 10s, of Sri Durga. That's actually the name of a book. The first book I ever wrote, actually, or ever composed, was the 10 articles of Sri Durga. It's here on our shelf. And has this in colorized version, this image of her, by one of our friends who did a great job of colorizing it, and then takes you through the symbology and meaning of each of her arms holding these different weapons. And although sometimes they change inside of any given representation or picture of her image, any murti, these 10 are pretty much seen most of the time. Of course, her sword of non-dual wisdom, which cuts off the head of the ego, and that head is usually seen to smile, you see, because it's now been separated from its individual existence. Now she actually will, though you won't see it, she's putting it on the garland of skulls around her neck, you see. It becomes automatically added into her collection of heads. You see. She has collections of baby hands and girded around her waist. And she's quite horrific looking, but the whole thing, of course, is sort of eschewing the idea that anything can die, and that anything may render you impure, blood or anything. So, you on the battlefield with her, you realize that. The battlefield with her means here, fighting all of the demons of ego and egocentricity and so forth that are coming at you all the time from various quarters and various directions. You take her with you. And that's why the shield, you see. The shield of complete protection, which, if you had studied the yamas and niyamas, you would have some of those. They say the mantra, for instance, acts first as a shield because, it happened yesterday. I probably shouldn't go into it, but I'll just say generally that every time there's a retreat, a class, a puja, anything of great merit that's going to help the person, the ancestors get in the way. Family gets in the way. Past karmas get in the way right on that particular time at that particular day. It's just as if we say Maya is insentient, but as if it has a mind of its own. And it's just going to get in the way right at the most important time of your life, you see. You have to recognize it's the most important time of your life. And then you can bat it away, you see. If you don't, then you just give in to the dead corpse of convention. You see, that's how Sri Ramakrishna put it. The dead, rotting corpse of convention. What he means is that that's your worldly family, worldly friends, worldly people around you. You have to appease them by throwing little grams of rice and so forth in the open mouth. You see. So they'll leave you alone for a while, and you can go do something important. You see, that's how a husband and wife, you see, one spiritual, one not, can get along. See, if she's the spiritual one and he's the dullard, you see, worldly person, then she's going to say, okay, yes, let's go to the bar, or let's go to the concert, or let's go shopping, or whatever. She appeases him for a little while, and then when he's busy doing that, she sneaks off and goes to puja, you see. And sometimes it's the other way around. The husband is the one that wants to go, and the wife is wanting to go shopping, you see. I'm shopping, you see, it's shop samadhi. So you appease the dead corpse of convention. Ramakrishna was very direct about it. Sort of like Christ saying, you don't strew pearls before swine. You know, I mean, they don't mince words. If you don't have a spiritual life, then you might as well be the walking dead here, going from lifetime to lifetime, taking on bodies and suffering and enjoying in turns. So you find ways to appease the dead corpse of convention. Well, that's my explanation of what Japa does at the beginning. As soon as you want to take hand in Sufism, as soon as you want to take refuge in the Buddhism, in Buddha, as soon as you want to take mantra diksha in Vedanta, or any entrance, get baptized in Christianity, I would say, that's when everything will get in the way. It'll come running forward. World situations, your own karma, family, they all get in the way. Oh no, right at that particular time, you see, because misery loves company. Even the gods do not want you to get free. The gods, you know, they want you under their control. It's one of the teachings in India. Is you want to get beyond the gods. The human being is free. See, the gods aren't. The gods are fixed to their position for hundreds and thousands of years. See? Yes, you should revere them. Yes, you should respect them. So they'll get out of the way. So you can move beyond them, because you are the Atman. You're beyond body. You're beyond heaven. And a great soul like Vivekananda shows you that, even here on earth. See, 39 years of complete freedom in the body. Nothing could bind him. There's a great sun, no darkness around the sun. So the mantra will act as protection, because everything, you know, besides your family and everything that gets in the way, then the gods will get in your way after that. Oh, he's got a mantra. She's got a mantra. We want to try and find some way to attach them back to the earth, you see. Even Sri Ramakrishna's parents. Oh, he's getting too high in his meditations and so forth. Let's get him married. That'll bring him down. See? But he found a way out of that. Talk about appeasing the corpse of convention. He married. Yes, he said, yes, mother, I will marry if that's what you want. But my bride is already selected for me. She's in a nearby village, a couple miles away. She's marked with a straw. And so, who's that? So they ran to that family and found that they had a daughter, but she was only 5 years old. But Ramakrishna is the only woman he'd marry, you see. So that means he was left free of any kind of family responsibility. He was 22, you see, or so. So she had to wait 13 years to come, you see, to be with him. So solved everyone's problem, you see. But it didn't bring Ramakrishna down off of his high consciousness. He was unimpeded. So that's what I mean. Shield of protection here isn't just, oh, look at the nice shield Holy Mother's holding up, you see. Look at the nice jewels in it or whatever, you see. Or she'll protect us from harm. It goes deeper than that. You connect it with the mantra, for instance, becoming a shield against anyone keeping you from receiving that kind of initiation. See? And then once you get that kind of initiation and you're doing the practice, it shields you from the powers, inner powers. So it shields you from outer powers first, then it shields you from inner powers. So it can do its own work, you see. And then when it starts bringing up your karmas and so forth, you have the wherewithal, the room, and the power and the teachings to deal with them. See? Then the mantra converts itself into bliss. See? We saw that in our founder, Lex Ixon. He started with the mantra. We saw him doing it through years and decades. And finally, he was doing the mantra and weeping, and sometimes just completely in joy and bliss. See, mantra always on his lips, beads always out, you see. And same when he became a teacher in the Jarahi Dervish order, he still had the beads, you see there, and he was speaking the name of Allah and Muhammad and so forth. So it becomes how they call it, a spring of ambrosia, like a fountain inside of you. Started off as a protection, went to inner protection, went to a practice, that purified you and then finally ended up as bliss. See? And that's all like Mother's shield. If you're concentrated inside yourself, the world can't find you. See? If you don't have that protection, the world is headed towards you. It will find you. It will harm you, you see. It will get in and harm your life. It will impede you. So that is why, as soon as you're born, you look for holy company. The first thing even the seers do is look for a teacher. They don't need a teacher anymore. The first thing they'll do is look for a teacher and get initiated. Because initiation purifies their body in that lifetime. And if your body's pure, you can go anywhere. You can go into any holy company, any circle, any sangha, in any religion, and you'll be accepted. If you're not, it's like a cow trying to get into a herd of horses, you see. You'll drive him away. So they find out that, you're respected and revered member of Judaism or something else. Oh, come on in, you should learn from us. We'll benefit from you, you see. It's all open arms. Congeniality. It's not the closed arms of religious conventionality. It's the wide open arms of religious congeniality. See? Come on in. See? More the better. So, I've taken too long on the shield, but that's what I think of when I think of the shield. It's a powerful thing she holds. Conch of auspicious victory. We even blew that at the end of the puja last night. 2 of them, and you could, although we haven't practiced, our embouchure isn't very good. We managed to get a few toots out. You see. And that was at the end of the puja to claim that auspicious victory that she always evinces. You see, she always exudes. She's Jai, Sri, Jai Sri Guru, Jai Durga, Jai Kali, Jai Sri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. So it's always that kind of clarion call, they call it, you see, of victory, of eternal victory. And in the olden days, and you'll find these stories in the Mahabharata again, the 2 armies met, they each had their conch blowers. It says, oh, we have our archers, and we have our horsemen, our cavalry, and so forth. Hey, where are the conch blowers, you see? Come forward, you're first, you see. So a bunch of people come forward with their conches, you see, and give a big blast to try and terrify the other army, you see. But they even named their conches, you see. They named their conches. These were like voices from deities and practices that they had worshipped, and so they were personifications of sound. See, the conches. I would go on longer about the conch than the shield, you see, because the conch is sound, and I know that's the yogis. The yogi isn't necessarily a visionary; he's more a mystic. Mysticism there doesn't mean a bunch of occult powers. It means sound, vibration, thought vibration. That's mysticism. True mysticism is that. So they will hear the truth. Others might see the truth, but the yogis will hear the truth and broadcast it. Now there's the bow of unerring projection and the arrow of inscrutable accuracy. That is Dhanar Grihitva Upanishadam Hastram Sharam Hupasanashita Sanjayita. Take that mind take the scriptures as if it were a bow and fasten to it the arrow of your mind. Make sure you sharpen it with thoughts of reality alone, then release and penetrate the mark, the imperishable Brahman. So that's the unerring arrow and this unerring projection and inscrutable accuracy of the mother's bow and arrow. She sets it to a task then. It's not like the arrow you shot from the bow that's like past karma. You can't call it back. It's not like that kind of arrow. The bow and arrow has many teachings. It's like in the gospel, there's so many bird stories, so many fish stories. Sri Ramakrishna has different connotations for each of them. Like he says, the bird, no matter how high the bird flies, it has to come to rest on a branch. So he's talking about high meditation, but you can't stay in high meditation all the time. You have to come back to the branch of the body-mind mechanism to rest. Then you can take another foray into the uncharted. See, so that's one bird story. But then and he talks about other bird stories and other fish stories and so forth. And so in that way they become metaphoric, but also very effective in transmitting the truth to us. Bow and arrow is the same way. There's a story of, the archer master looking at all of his students lined up along the river, trying to shoot fish with a bow and arrow. Comes up to the first one and asks, "What are you aiming at?" "I'm aiming at the fish." The next one, "What are you aiming at?" "I'm aiming at the body of the fish." "Good. What are you aiming at?" Next one, "I'm aiming at the eye of the fish." And then you get to an archer like Arjuna or one of those who could split an apple 500 yards from a moving chariot. You don't want to be anywhere near him in a battle if you have any chink in your armor. He'll find it. So he asks Arjuna, "What are you aiming at?" My arrow's already in the fish. That's the Advaitic position. I'm already that. And anything you tell me will just be an add-on to that perspective. I'll just enjoy it in unending. I love the Dharma, I love the Sangha, I love the teachings, I want to share it. But then there's those occasional souls who become asanga. They walk away, they don't need coaching anymore. In fact, they'd rather be alone, And they won't benefit from holy company, Nevertheless, right early in their life, early on, they run for holy company, get initiated, and then maybe never see their teacher again. That happened to Sri Aurobindo. He was on a train. He met Bhaskar Leli. Bhaskar Leli said, "You look like an interesting young man." And they talked for a few hours. And Bhaskar Leli found out this was a man of exceptional ability. And he asked, "Did you take initiation yet?" And Sri Aurobindo said, "No." He said, "I'll give it to you right now." So right there in the train moving along, Bhaskar Leli initiated Sri Aurobindo into the mantra and the path, and they never saw each other again. Because Bhaskar Leli knew you had to get initiation to be acceptable, to have your body purified in any given life. That's why you run for holy company. How many teachers did the Paramahamsa, the avatar of the age, take? He didn't need teachers. He took a woman tantric teacher by Ravi Brahmani. He took a teacher in Muslim religion, Govinda Rai. He took a teacher of Advaita Vedanta, Totapari. He didn't need those teachers. He was a perfected soul. Why was he doing it? To show us that we should take a teacher. We need guides. The spiritual path is windy and precarious and narrow and as sharp as a razor's edge. Are you going to navigate it by yourself? You'll fall into that canyon of failure again and again. And if you fail too many times, you build a samskara of failure. And that's what you see being born. Why people are so malcontent. And you teach children in school, like some of my students does and my wife does, little tiny children. Their samskaras are also coming out. Some of them are sitting there going, "I can do this, I can do this," Others, "I can't do this," Did God grace one and curse the other? Are you going to tell me? Or is God impartial and transcendent? So there you have it. You can read the signs right there, and you know what kind of guidance you have to give and how you have to give it. It's all based on these impressions. So impressions are what the bow and arrow are about, and also what the spear is about. But we will get to that after the break, for we've run out of time in the first half. So we'll show these two charts to the live streaming audience as we break for some refreshment and prasad in our ashram kitchen. There's plenty of it from last night's puja. So please, take some paisha. Namaste, aloha, and we will return in 15 minutes.